right, guys. Hey, welcome everyone. This is the US Chess School. We're live with Grandmaster Magesh Panchanathan, who's going to be teaching today's class. And as usual, the theme for this this first month that we're streaming these classes is going to be learning from losses. Greg has asked all the coaches to come in with some instructive losses that they can share with the class. With that, I'll toss it over to Grandmaster Magesh. Please take it away.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you, Kashya. We'll get started. I guess, like you mentioned, the theme today is going to be lesson from losses, and I have very lots of interesting games. Of course, the minute this came to my mind, but I also want to discuss a lot about the psychological aspect of these losses. I think more than anything else, I think most of them eventually will come down to some part of miscalculation or, I guess, some mistake at some point. So we can all kind of get that, but I'm kind of interested in talking about what happened during the game, or as much as I can remember, and then what kind of decisions were made, and so that kind of psychological aspect as well. So we'll definitely talk about that during this one. So the first game, depending on, of course, the time, we'll see how many. I have a few games, let's see how many we can do. But the first game I'm going to show you is a game that I played against Grandmaster Sundar Raj and Kidambi. This was actually, if I remember right, the last game in Barcelona Open. And I was playing white, and I was having a phenomenal tournament. I was kind of playing. I mean, I was, I don't know if I was half a point ahead of him, but it looked like I was really in there to win the tournament. And we both are pretty much playing in the last game. And he needed a win to actually get his last Grandmaster nom. And so this game is also like a very curious thing for me, because I mean, once you see the game, you'll probably understand more about what I'm talking about in terms of psychological aspects and other things. But let's jump right into it with some moves. So I played b3. At this time, I was super experimental. I was ready to play anything I want with white. So I started with b3. So I'm going to skip through the opening part, and we're not going to spend too much time discussing the opening. I went for some double fianchetto, knight f6, castle. And I'll go to a point where it gets reasonably interesting, and then we'll stop there. Okay, so c4, and eventually I also played d4, and I guess knight b2. So okay, nothing out of the ordinary. I think we have a very, very normal position. Yeah, someone's asking about the year. It was, played in 2008, so we have like 12 years ago. I became a grandmaster in 2006, so this is just 2 years after I became a GM. Knight to d2, bishop h5, and I played rook e1 with the idea of e4 and knight e4. So I mean, rook e1 almost is kind of pretty much making knight e4 almost forced, because I think otherwise I get to play e4 and white gets a very comfortable position. Yeah. So my opponent played knight e4. So let's start from here. By the way, I like to keep this as interactive as possible. So bring in your variations, bring in your questions in chat during the game. So I'd be very happy to talk about it. It's much better to do it that way than keeping it as a complete lecture. So I know some of you already do that, and if they use the exclamation point like it was mentioned earlier, if you want to be called on. All right, so knight e4. Let's start with this. I think the first decision-making point for me here. What do you guys think? What should we do? I mean, we are very early in the game, so I don't really want to go into very definitive right or wrong yet. It's just actually, I would like to talk about something very quickly before we do this. That is, I think the most important thing that it comes down to when it comes to studying your losses is basically your decision making. Somewhere you made some decision that's probably questionable, and that's the reason you're really going to get into all these difficult positions or whatever that is. So you really have to go down to your analysis to see where the decision making was and why you actually made that, right? It's your single most important thing to do when you do your game analysis. If you can kind of self-reflect on what happened, that'll be very, very useful. And that's what I want to do in this particular game, to look at the decision. All right, so I'm hearing some variations of knight takes e4, d takes e4, knight d2, f5, and f3. Okay, that seems very logical. I see knight takes e4, knight e3 directly here. So black's most likely going to play f5, yeah? So f5 is definitely coming in. And I know, particularly given that I played rook e1, this doesn't seem like a very useful move if I'm never going to play e4. I don't know if rook e1 is maybe dubious right here already, but the fact is f5 is a little annoying. So if you allow me to play f5, and after then I can never touch knight takes e4 because you'll always take with f1. Queen c2, again, the problem is at some point you're sitting in a diagonal which is quite annoying, yeah? So you don't want the queen to be on c2, particularly with the bishop being able to go to g6. So I think some of, who was this? Yeah, Aradhya already mentioned. So my main idea when I played rook e1 was to just take and go knight d2, and of course at some point to play f3, which will justify my rook on e1, yeah? So when I played rook e1, when I was calculating this, that was my main goal. So I'll take on e4, go knight d2, at some point break f3, and hopefully the center will, you can break the center enough that black won't be able to launch a huge attack. So I went ahead with that. So let's go ahead and again take a little bit of moves in. So knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, knight d2, f5, and here I actually, if I remember right, maybe I played c5 first. Yeah, I played c5 followed by knight c4. So again, this seemed very logical to me. The reason why I wanted to do this is because my knight eventually can go to e5 and just block the diagonal if I need to. And also possibly land on d6, right? I mean, positionally, this seems very, very sound to play c5, knight c4. Given that I've not committed e3, I could also play bishop c1, bishop f4 in the future, right? And by the way, again, I'm super confident in this tournament. So, and when I'm playing these things, I'm not thinking too much. I'm playing it out of intuition. I'm just like maybe spending 2 or 3 minutes thinking about what the ideas are and playing it. Aradhya is asking about e5. E5, I was not too worried about, particularly because I played knight c4. Think about this. Now I have already stopped e5 right away. And if you prepare and you play e5, we might end up getting a bunch of trades. And it's possible maybe black can eventually play queen e7 and e5 kind of ideas. It's very much possible. And there is also knight f6, knight d5 that's being suggested. That is true. Absolutely, we can do that. But my goal is this, yeah? Like we discussed earlier, if I play f3, how would black actually deal with that? That's my main question for all of you. How would black deal with f3? Because there is a very interesting positional problem that you have. If you end up having double pawns on e4, that could be trouble. Or if you end up taking on f3, which is also going to be trouble, yeah? All right, let's see what are the options. I'm hearing if f3, then e3, knight takes e3 and f4. Very interesting. So the boy with a big brain is saying e3. I don't know what your name is. That's very much possible. Yeah, you want to play e3, sacrifice a pawn, and then you want to go in here. Okay, oh, that's Andy. All right, Andy, you're sacrificing a pawn for initiative. Definitely makes sense. It's possible. My opponent actually just played knight f6. So here, I would say is where it starts, the real trouble starts. And I also wanted to pass on a very, very interesting or important advice one of my friends gave me after this game. It made a lot of sense. That is, at any time you're playing a game where you feel like your opponent is just doing something that doesn't make much sense, or you feel like you are the only one who's making progress and your opponent is doing nothing and they're kind of really no fight, right? When you get that kind of a feeling, you have to be extremely cautious. And at some point in this game, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking I'm positionally going to dominate my opponent. I'm going to get all the dark squares. Already I was feeling positionally superior. When I play f3, I was like, okay, I'm going to open up the e file, or I'm going to double up the pawns here. Yeah, maybe there is some problem in some attack. I can easily defend it, right? So the first main mistake of the game, f3. Again, I'm simply going with my plan. I'm completely ignoring the fact that I have no clue about my opponent's plans or ideas. So this is, I mean, eventually each one of you will figure out that you will all have your own weaknesses. When you start analyzing your games, when you start working up with your own analysis, if you analyze multiple games that you have, you will probably realize that there are certain weaknesses that you have in your own game. And my weakness, there are a few games where I've realized that is sometimes I just play my own plan and that's it, right? I'm like so involved with my plan, I think that I'm just winning or I'm completely crushing. And I know you probably can relate to these things too at some point. So let's see. I got f4 as two important players. Two players are suggesting f4. Yeah, I'm not alone for sure, right? We all have this particular specific problem. E takes f3, e takes f3, rook e8 with ideas of e5. Frankly, I was hoping that would happen, Aradhya. In fact, if you do this, I'm quite happy as white because this is very weak. And I have too much control on e5 and d6. I don't think black can come back from this. I can simply play even queen e2, rook d1 if I want to. This positional hold is just too strong. The only thing you have in return is this pawn, but you really even cannot attack this so much. So e takes f3, e takes f3 is exactly what I'm hoping for in the game. When I play f3, I'm thinking, oh, wait, he cannot play knight d5 because this is eventually hanging. There is no e5. And it looks like I'm just winning positionally. Yeah. So I think some of you already suggested the move. It's f4. So this looks extremely obvious once you see it. It makes so much sense that black should be playing f4. But somehow when I'm calculating, I completely missed it. So that's the thing I want to talk about today. Is that there are some positions where you just cannot, it doesn't just make sense. If I maybe calculate this position right now, or if we sit down and calculate on this position right now, it's almost impossible to miss something like f4. Yet in a game, it's something that I totally missed. And f4. So sometimes this also happens repeatedly, one after another. The first shock is usually a problem. You get a first shock in a game that might lead to a second and third shock. Yeah. So first problem, f4 is really opening up the position. What should I do? So now my reaction has to be very precise because I'm already in a very dangerous situation, right? Let's see, what do you guys think? G4 and you pretty much kill the light squared bishop. That's actually true. Let's see what happens after G4. So if you play G4, can I actually take? What do you guys think? Would you take on G4? Or would you go bishop G6? Technically, it looks like both are possible. I can go bishop G6 too. I can also take on G4. Which looks extremely interesting. What do you guys think? Knight G4, then Queen H4. That's exactly what I was thinking, yeah? So knight takes G4, pawn takes G4. Let's see if we can make this work. This looks very, very promising. The only problem is the knight can block the bishop, so I'm worried about that. Okay, what happens now? F3 is my idea. What do we have? I want some suggestions from the chat. Let's see what you guys think. If pawn takes h5, I'm guessing f3. But after f3, there's still knight d6 or actually knight e5. It doesn't look so obvious. Yeah, knight e5, I'm hearing h3 and f. What else? G takes h5. Let's look at knight e5. Let's start with knight e5. Looks like a very reasonable move. So I guess I can take on e5. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and I take on g4. What do we have here? I'm threatening f3 next with the idea of f2.
Looks very dangerous.
It's still quite interesting. I'm not sure if we can completely come to a conclusion. Bishop takes e4. Should I start with rook d8? Maybe this is too good for white eventually, yeah, because I'm defending everything. Unless black comes up with something very interesting right away. So let's try something like rook d8. Use our free tempo. Maybe queen c1 or queen c2. Yeah, I'm actually going to, at this point, conclude that this is okay for white. Even though it looked very crazy, scary, there is no immediate threat. Looks dangerous, yes, but lack of immediate threat would definitely make me think that white should be able to defend. Yeah. So 94 is pretty strong to start with. I mean, taking was also maybe possible because after the push, still 95, 96 were possible. So, I mean, it's still very, very crazy. But anyways, I mean, there's knight g4 or I don't know if I can do this. Yeah, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes g4. This is also very interesting. Probably this is better than what we were looking at, because now queen h4 is a little bit more clear. Yeah, Avan is saying bishop g4. What is thinking, Avan? That's right, your attacking style. Yeah, and if I play h3 now, I can definitely try queen h4 and f3. I can even play knight e3, guys. Even this might be interesting. I mean, this is I have crazy triple pawns here, but this king is so weak.
It's dangerous.
I might still be able to pull this off. So
bishop b8, queen c7.
But maybe queen h4 is more clear. Anyways, and to also answer one more question, I was really not happy with the idea of playing g4 simply because of this. I was looking at this and thinking, you know what? The last thing I want to do is play g4, and even if he goes bishop, actually, even if bishop goes to g6, I could try to open it, but then I lose this one. I don't know, maybe even e3, I don't know. This just looks unfortunately very, very bad. Yeah. So I decided that I wanted to try to do something that is very clear, and I wanted to calculate. And the first shock of not seeing f4 led to the second shock. So going forward, my calculation level dipped quite a bit, that I was not seeing literally the next coming moves. So I would say what again did was an extremely unusual decision. I played pawn takes e4. So somehow I'm not seeing any of the danger. And yeah, I think we might have to close the chat. Let's just do this.
Yeah, chat is been closed.
Well, it's saying host only right now, but I'm still seeing chat. Okay, it's been done, I think. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Chat is closed. So you guys can focus here. Okay, so I played f takes e4. When I look at this game, sometimes I'm wondering what was I thinking? Yeah, what was I thinking? But then let's figure out what the answer is, and then we'll go to that next. So what should black do here, guys? Let's go. You can use a chat. Now you can only chat to me. It's been taken care of. No unnecessary chat, but you can type your answer to me still. I'll be able to look at it. What's the first move you're looking at? Okay, Andy's looking at knight takes e4. Avan is looking at f takes g3. So there are a few ways white wants to close the position. I'll tell you that, right? I have some e5 ideas, knight e5 ideas, knight d6 ideas. These are the ideas to close out the bishop, of course. And I also have h3 ideas after you play pawn takes g3. These are the simple ideas that white has to try to stop or close the position. Aradhya saying f takes g3 is a free pawn. Well, yes, f takes g3, probably I'll play h3. Then what? That's the main question. How would you proceed? In fact, this has to be calculated when you played f4, because pawn takes e4 is the main move. Yeah, I pick up a free pawn. If you take on g3 and I play h3, what happens? G5 to play g4. H3. Okay, that's interesting. Let's have Andy talk. Andy wants to give me a variation. All right, Andy, let's go. What do you have?
I thought knight takes e4.
Okay, very interesting. Bishop takes.
And f takes g3.
Now you want to play queen h4, yeah?
Yeah.
Looks pretty strong, actually. What can I do? I feel like you have it, except you don't need to complicate. You can do it in a slightly better move order. What can you do first?
Maybe f takes g3.
Yeah, I would start with f takes g3 because white's pretty much forced to play, I think, h3, yeah?
Yeah.
Unless I want to give up more pawns here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe e5 is still possible here. But e5, I could still play knight e4 or knight d5. Yeah, so this is a better move order because the only main move I have is h3.
And then knight e4.
Now knight e4. That's it. It's crushing. Good job.
Wow, really?
The funny thing is, in this position, in my mind, I was winning. When I had this game, like calculation, like 2 or 3 moves before, even when my opponent played f4, when I played f takes e4, I'm thinking this variation is not possible, and I'm thinking that I'm winning because I just did not see that knight e4 and queen h4 is happening. Right? So this whole game was like I was in a big illusion. And when my opponent played knight e4, that's when everything came to me. I'm like, wait, I'm completely lost.
Wow.
Queen h4, I'm getting mated. Most of my pieces are on the queen side. My queen is not even getting back into the game. And in fact, my rook is on e1, which looks absolutely silly. Yeah, any of my ideas with f3 never panned out. Rook on f1 at least would have been a better defense. Awan, you're asking about knight g4. I think knight g4 is also possible. But knight e4 is stronger, Awan. I think it's maybe even more. You can go to f2 anyways. Yeah, it's the same thing. And I think knight e4 is slightly stronger than knight g4. Probably black has multiple ways to win here. So that's the one moment when everything came, crashing down for me. I was like, okay, this is completely lost. So one of the things I wanted to show from this game, I mean, I'll show you the next few moves I took. He played queen h4, but at this point I realized it's all over. Bishop g2 was played, and then bishop g4. So, I mean, he's threatening rook f2, he's threatening bishop h3. It's basically unbelievably bad for me.
That hurts.
With my king like this, right? So I played some d5, he played rook f2, threatening mate, and I resigned. So rook takes g2 followed by queen h3. I'm getting mated. Yeah,
that ended so quickly.
So this game only lasted 20 moves. So this is move 20. And I was playing white, and I was in great form. And at the end of the game, I walked out thinking, what just happened, right? How is it possible that I misjudged or misunderstood the position so much that, because to lose like this, you cannot make just one bad decision. You probably have to make multiple bad decisions, right? So let's start with rook e1. So I'm building a story starting here, and this is what I want you to remember, because every time you're playing a game, you're building some story, you're building some plans. Yeah. The only good thing is when you do these plans, you're also making plans for your opponent, and you're kind of checking to see, oh, I can do this, my opponent can do this, and all of those things. But sometimes you might be lost, very rarely, but sometimes you can do that, right? Is that you completely ignore your opponent's plans and you start just sitting there wondering about your awesome ideas and plans and just doing that, right? Well, Aradhya, story meaning we kind of tell a story to ourselves, right? That's usually very common in plans, right? I mean, it's not necessarily like a story, but it's the idea of thinking with a path, right? I'm playing rook e1 here. My story in my mind is that I'm going to play e4, or if he plays knight e4, I'm going to move my knight, and at some point play f3, and my rook is still going to make sense on e1, yeah? So it's a starting point, and now I'm going with it. At this point, there is no check. I didn't stop here to think, wait, is there going to be any problem? Is my opponent's attack going to be strong, right? The next kind of decision that I made is to play c5 and knight c4. Again, still continuing my idea. I wish at any point here, if I had a small wake-up call, I would have probably salvaged the game, yeah? Maybe I would have played knight f1, realizing how dangerous things are looking at the king side right now. I would have definitely not played knight c4, right? And definitely, of all the thing, I would not have played f3. I think f3 is almost pretty much the losing move here. I mean, now black does have a lot of attack, but f3 just loses, right? Wow. Is there d5 instead of c5? I don't think this looks... Why can't I take the free pawn? Because I don't think we have enough ante. Because pawn takes, and you want knight c4? You want to play
knight e4.
Okay, knight e4. Interesting. I didn't even consider this. If I play pawn takes, queen takes d6, I think white should be better there. And if pawn takes queen check, and I'm picking up one of the two bishops, so that's fair enough. So, okay, d5, I cannot take it, yeah? So maybe I have to take...
Yeah, it seems like the whole idea with f3,
maybe take and
c4
something like bishop e5
was just kind of flawed. And I think he's saying white's position is already
pawn takes and bishop takes,
really dangerous there.
The problem is the structure of this bishop is still bad, I think. It's going to take some time for me to get back in. So bishop takes e5, knight takes e5, and pawn takes e6, knight takes e6. Okay. This is still way better than the game, though, right? Good suggestion. Again, I would have made one of these options or choices if I had realized what was happening and how things were changing. But I didn't, right? And that's the reason I kept going with my plan. I said, okay, c5 and knight c4. Again, all through this time, I'm thinking positionally I'm superior. And this is where I came back to that advice. If you ever feel this, right? If you're ever playing a game and you feel like you're the only one making plans, and your opponent is like not doing anything, that's a big danger sign, particularly if you're playing a good player. Okay, you might be playing someone who's really making a lot of mistakes. That's possible too, right? But I'm playing someone who's a grandmaster level player, and I was getting this feeling that I was dominating continuously without him putting up any fight. And when the fight started with F4, it was already too late, right? And since I was so shaken up, I didn't even react properly to it. So yeah, I hope this is like a, just sharing my experience more than anything else, right? I don't think there is an easy answer to say how you can completely avoid it. It's of course balance, because you should have a lot of confidence in what you're doing, but at the same time you should have some checks and balances, right? You should know when you're, you keep an eye on your opponent's plans and don't get carried away in that kind of stuff usually, right? And also one more lesson is, if you get hit with a very tough move or a situation that you never thought about, it's always a good idea to kind of take a walk, try to clear your mind a little bit, because it's very difficult to come back and get and see what is going on in an objective way, because you just kind of lost the whole plan that you had, and you have to completely switch gears, right? Which could be tough. All right, let's move on to the next one. I have one more game. I think that'll be perfect. We can finish with 2 games. Okay. All right, let's do this.
Yeah, definitely. Very easy to just forget about your opponent's plans.
All right. Aradhya saying nice game. Yes, it was a very nice game for my opponent. The funny thing is, he ended up getting his grandmaster title, and he's a good friend of mine, right? So we walk into the game, I lose in 20 moves, and I come back, and everyone's like, "Did you just throw the game to your friend?" I'm like, "No, I did not. I wish I was I was supposed to win the tournament by winning that game. My game was so bad that people were asking me such questions." After the last game, are we going to do a Kahoot? Oh man, I'm always there's always a Kahoot question. Let's see. I think we need to have a Q&A here. We're probably not going to do a Kahoot. Yeah. So let's get going with this next game. It's also a very interesting game. Again, I want to talk about the psychological aspects of what happens, at a certain point, how you react to moves, and what are the practical aspects of the game. In this one, I'm playing against someone around 20 to 50. I don't know if it's exact rating. The name of the player is David Didkin. And this was in Cherry Blossom Classic last year. So I got into this endgame out of the opening. I mean, I skipped to the opening, from the opening, and just got to this point. And actually, I was not happy. I mean, you could probably tell my rook is not very well placed, not doing much. And in general, I think this pawn center is very annoying. At some point, if white figures out a way to start pushing it, it is a serious threat for me, right? So my pieces are not going to be in safe spots. I'll have to run around and find better squares. So overall, I reached this endgame thinking, okay, I'm not in great shape, but hopefully I can pull something. I can try to maybe swindle something. I was not still thinking about a draw yet. I was hoping that I can kind of outplay my opponent. So what happened was, okay, I started with rook f6, rook here, rook f5. And here, actually, my opponent, already I think rook f5 is unpleasant for my opponent. He missed this. So this move allows rook here, and there is no c4. So he has only one weakness on the board, and he allowed me to play rook f5. Once I played rook f5, this became quite a difficult thing, or like an annoying thing, right? Now, white has a couple of choices. I could try to play some rook e2 or rook a1 to defend the pawn, or go rook c1, rook b1, and then rook b2 to defend the pawn, right? So he made a good practical choice. He decided to give up this pawn, which actually surprised me during the game. I thought, he was probably going to defend it. He was probably going to go rook e2 and then bishop e1 or bishop e3, something like that, and just defend the pawn. After which, I think my position would be very reasonable. I would be in a great, I wouldn't say great, at least my rook will be super active, yeah? Think of my rook on a5. So I think it's very difficult to kick my rook out, and this pawn is very, very weak. The only plan that white can reasonably have is bring the king all the way over and then maybe release the other pieces, and then white can have, again, good position. But I was kind of happy once I played rook f5. My opponent goes rook e8 check, a4, and just gives up that pawn. So I play b6. I guess if I play rook a5, is there yeah, maybe there is c4 and c5 winning my bishop. So I play b6, rook a5, and I pick up the pawn. So at this point, I'm pretty confident I'm going to probably outplay my opponent. I'm thinking that, this is good situation for me. Yeah. Again, knight e5, strong move. He's forcing me to take it pretty much, and undoubling the pawn and creating a very strong pawn center. Again, he clearly has enough compensation. His rook is very strong and his pawns in the center are very strong. So I do have to be very careful defending the position here. So I played rook a5 and I basically brought my rook back to d7. And this seemed like the most simplest thing for me to do. And king here, king d3. So at this point, I started realizing this is not super easy. Yeah, I was on one hand happy that I have a knight against a bishop where all the pawns are on dark squares, even though they're not fixed. Yeah, these two, let's leave it. These three pawns are in dark squares, and if I somehow can establish some blockade, I will be fantastic in that position. And I'm also up a pawn. Yeah, so that's the only thing I need. If I get b5 and c6 and my knight on d5, I'm basically winning here, right? I can just play a5 and a4 and start pushing that if I get that. Problem is time. I just cannot achieve that because his rook is so annoying, too active, and it's really creating problems. So knight e7, c4, and c6. So up to this point, I had calculated and I realized, okay, I'm not, losing anything. I'm holding things together because now d5 is almost impossible to achieve because I'm holding that, and nothing else can be attacked. At any point, d6 I'll take, and every other pawn is safe, right? So when I calculated my point for bringing the rook back to this situation and getting this, I was quite happy. I was like, okay, this is good. b5 at some point. That's right. Yep, definitely b5. And Andy suggesting, that's right, king e4, bishop d2, bishop b4. Yes, white could create some play eventually. If I sit around not doing anything, I can play even h4, h5, g4. White will expand all over the place, and it'll be trouble. So I did want to play b5, so I went for it. So here, again, very tricky situation. I have good control of this, but if I lose control of d5, I'm in serious trouble. d5 and d6, this could be real trouble, yeah? So
it's good that on rook b8, black has knight d5.
Very tricky situation. I have connected pass pawns on the
rook takes b4,
outside,
knight c3.
Very strong pass pawn with the bishop for white in the center, and a very strong king. I mean, all white pieces are too active.
There's rook takes d4.
All right, so bishop d2 was played. And here I probably made my first, like a mistake. So if I put my knight on d5 and if I sit, I think I should be able to hold this. I don't see any way for white to break through. I think maybe rook b8 and a6, and I might lose a pawn, yeah? I don't remember exactly what the idea was, but definitely not allow him to do this. But knight d5, maybe rook b8. It's still not so clear to me. Because if I play a6, then maybe rook a8. And then maybe some b4, b3, yeah? Can I get b4 and b3 possibly? Yeah, I think it's possible, but maybe knight c7 is also possible, yeah? But knight c7, he goes rook a7. So this is quite annoying if he gets this. Yeah, I don't remember exactly the variations, guys, but one thing I can tell you is I was, when I played this move, I was a little nervous because I felt like if I did anything wrong, this pawn would be very dangerous. And when I played f5 check was my next move. This was my plan. I was, of course, very nervous. Unlike the other game, in this game, I was in there and I was calculating and I was not really thinking my opponent doesn't have any play, right? I was quite nervous when I played this move because, okay, this is very dangerous, right? I have a blockade, and I'm also creating a path for my king to come in. Yeah, both are very, very nice. But I'm really giving an option for my opponent to run these 2 pawns in the game at some point. Yeah. So, but I had calculated. I spent a lot of time here. So I started calculating the next 2 or 3 moves. I was like spending a ton of time thinking and calculating. So yeah, en passant is pretty bad. Yeah, you don't want to lose this pawn for white. If white does en passant, I take back and I'm very, very happy. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're saying it's not an issue for me. I don't have to worry about en passant. The only thing I should be worried about is what if these pawns run away? All right, so you played king d3. And so here, I'll tell you what my calculation was. This is all when I'm playing f5. Obviously, f5, king d3 is almost the only move that I'm thinking about, right? What do you guys think the next move should be for black?
Maybe knight c6 looks obvious.
I did get into time trouble at some point, but I don't think I lost because of time trouble. I think it's tough to say that. I want to discuss about why I lost. Of course, I'll get to that. All right, Andy suggesting king g6. Absolutely right. That's the first move that needs to come into your head, because king g6 followed by king f7 makes a lot of sense.
But king
right?
g6, I didn't like e6.
After king g6, what do we expect white to play? e6, yeah? Yep, fair enough, e6. Let's go. How about let's take a couple of minutes now. I don't want to just continue with this. I want all of you to calculate and try to give me a small variation.
Okay. Here we go,
Let's
guys.
try to do a little bit of a variation, okay? King g6 is what black is going to do. And white has to play e6. Because if white doesn't play e6, I play king f7, I get king e6, and I'm super solid once I establish a blockade.
King g6, e6.
I mean, there could be some rook b8 moves, but okay.
Rook b7.
At any point, if I establish a blockade, white is super fine, yeah?
Rook d8.
So
king f6.
After e6,
d5.
yes, I can play rook c7 or rook b7. These are the 2 main moves I have. No other option. Try to do a little bit of a calculation. Don't rush into the answer. Let's spend a minute or two thinking about this.
Yeah, king g6,
and also, if anyone wants to
e6,
talk
rook
about it,
b7.
we'll talk about it after that. I would like to have more discussion talking about the variations. But the first things, I want to give a couple of minutes to calculate what happens after king g6, e6.
King g6,
And
e6.
rook c7 or rook b7, whatever that is.
Rook d8. King f6, d5. Yeah, maybe knight g6 in that position? I don't know. It looks very double-edged, actually. So we're thinking king g6, e6, rook moves somewhere. I'm thinking rook b7, because rook c7, bishop comes to f4. So rook b7. Well, the line we're asking, or being asked about, is king g6 specifically, because knight d5, white can go e6, and they can break the blockade. So king g6, e6, rook b7.
Aryan, that's definitely a good variation, but we'll have to improve on it. I mean, the way we have to thinking about, the way we think about these variations is like, you come up with a variation, you get a result, and then you just have to improve on it next, yeah? So
no, black
if
can
you
still lose that. Bishop is pretty
want to
strong.
try to improve on that a little bit, let's try to improve on that. Because in that variation, clearly, black won, yeah?
Yeah, black can definitely win that. Or they can lose that, because the bishop will be really powerful. I would consider that like a last
Wait,
resort.
did black not win that one? Do you want to talk about that variation, Aryan? We can discuss that. Right, let's go.
Yeah, so I said first king g6,
Okay.
then e6,
Mm-hmm.
then rook to d7,
Mm-hmm.
then bishop b4,
Mm-hmm.
and then knight d5.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically you're either going to go king to f6 if he plays bishop d2 or something, if he moves his bishop away. And if he doesn't move his bishop away, then knight takes b4.
So black is winning in that variation, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I meant. I didn't say the game. So,
okay.
Yeah, your variation, black won, yeah? My question is, what do you do next? You'll have to figure out a way for white to play something better now, right? That's typically how you want to calculate. You don't want to end this saying, yes, black is winning, so that is the conclusion, right? Black did not win
He'll
the game.
probably play bishop c5 or something.
Okay, you could play bishop c5. There are so many places where white could play a different move. Can you think of a different variation as an upgrade to this for white, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. And Avan, no, black did not win. Guys, what I want to clarify is that we don't have, I'm not talking about the result of the game. The result, of course, you can see in the top, I lost the game. White ended up winning the game. And so the variations we're talking about right now, I'm talking about the result for the variations. So if you give me a variation, I might say white wins, black wins for the variation. So don't get that confused with the actual result of the game. Brian, I don't think I won this tournament. I don't think I lost to, I don't remember this, but I'm pretty sure I did not win the Cherry Blossom after losing to a 2250 early on. All right, Daniel has a variation. Let's see. Interesting. Daniel, do you want to talk about your variation quickly? I'll have to unmute you. Hold on one second. Yes.
Awesome. I just thought after king g6, e6, rook b7, rook e7, rook e7, d5, those pawns look pretty fast, and I don't know how to stop them.
My only question is, what's your next move?
For black or white?
For white, what is your threat?
Bishop b4 probably.
King f6.
Okay, bishop b4, and if I play rook e8, then you play...
Bishop b4 anyways, probably.
And then maybe king f6.
But isn't black frozen? Like, can't they just, white can do whatever they want, just king d4 maybe?
You could, I mean, one of the things I could do at some point is if I want to draw, I might have some possibilities to take rook takes c6, but I don't know if I even need to do that. But I want to first find out what, I mean, I do see what your point is. You want to just, well, how are you improving? You're going to go king c5, is it?
Yeah, but already like king f6, I can just go bishop c3 and try to get a draw. Because yeah, I can see like white's not pushing maybe.
I do feel it's very interesting, but I'm not very convinced that it's just like winning, right?
Yeah,
I feel like it's certainly a very interesting variation. So
He wants.
yeah, king g6,
King
c6, rook
g6,
b7, rook takes
e6,
c7, rook takes c7, and
takes.
d5. Yeah. So I'm trying to see if there's anything I can do immediately to refute it, but I don't see this. So yeah, I have to play something like rook e8, and you want to play bishop b4.
or maybe I can just start with king d4
Yeah, king d4 and king f6,
and then king c5 right away because there's no reason to go bishop b4.
but king e7.
And king c6, you're gonna check me.
Yeah, king c6, I'll go to check. If you let me play king d6, then I would win. Yeah.
Or if I take on b5, you're just gonna
King
win.
d6. King b5,
What?
king d6. If you take king b5,
Then bishop b4.
bishop
Oh, it's
b4,
not
king takes
that.
d5. Yeah. If you have one pawn to e7, it's not too dangerous.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, like I said, okay, let's put this as an interesting variation. I don't see that convincing of a win for white. So yeah, let's leave it at that and move on. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see what else. I've had a bunch of variations in the meantime. Let's check this a little bit. So Andy is suggesting K7, K7. So Andy, you're suggesting the same thing, yeah? Except you want to sacrifice on E6 very quickly. Aradhya, I might not do a Kahoot. I'll try. I'll see what it is, depending on what we finish here. So it's already 7:51. I want to make sure we finish this. And if we have, I don't even have all that many new Kahoots. So I just have one sick one, which probably most of you, I can get every one of you to get wrong answers in that. Maybe that's one thing in the end. But let's finish this one first before we talk about Kahoot. Okay, I see knight d5, bishop d2,
Thanks, nice sword for the sub.
All right, guys. I've had a bunch of variations. Let me move on with what I think is the most reasonable one. Of course, king g6. looks like the most reasonable move, e6 and rook b7. So up to this point, I think everybody concurred. No different opinions. So here I only saw two moves. One was bishop d4, one was rook takes e7. I feel like we are missing another very important candidate move.
Yeah, I was thinking rook d8.
You do want to push your pawns, yeah? You have two extremely strong pawns, exactly. Why not rook d8? I think rook d8 is an extremely important candidate move. In my calculation, rook d8 was the main move I calculated, because after bishop d4, in fact, I refuted bishop d4 with king f6. Knight d5 is also possible, but king f6 to me is just winning because, I mean, at least clearly better. Because bishop e7, rook e7. If I do trade, rook e7, king e7, after d5, I put my king on d6. Now I have pawns pushing on both sides, right? So it seems to be that black is winning in that variation. And you're right, knight d5 is also probably winning, yeah? So I didn't really calculate bishop b4 much. A small note for all of you to remember that when you're making decisions, you have to spend a lot of time on critical variations. The more time you spend on critical variations, the better chance for you to come up with the right evaluation, right? If you spend, let's say, 10 minutes on a variation that's not so important and then try to make a decision, your decision is absolutely not relevant to the main focus in the game, right? The game has to be decided with rook d8. But we didn't really spend too much time on rook d8, even though we spent some time thinking about it, right? So keep that in mind. Aryan wants to play rook d8, king f6, d5, knight takes d5. So Aryan, I will ask about it in just a minute, but I want to tell you that there is no reason to play king f6, yeah? Oh, actually, you know what? Let me talk to you very quickly. I want to see why you're sacrificing your pawn. All right, go on, Aryan, tell me. I mean, sacrificing a knight.
Usually, so black's a pawn up here,
That's right.
and then so after king f6, no, rook d8, king f6, d5, knight takes d5, rook takes d5, king takes c6, and you have 3 pawns for the bishop. Usually not enough for equality for the side with 3 pawns, but in this case there are good drawing chances because white barely has any pawns left,
Fair
and
enough.
you have 2 passed pawns on the queen side, connected passed pawns.
Yeah, I mean, you do have reasonable chances
And
to
also,
make a draw.
one other thing, your main advantage is gone.
Oh, you mean the pawns, yeah? Yeah. Okay, you do have reasonable chances to draw, but I'll tell you what, overall, I feel like I'm going to put my chances for white to convert that. It's not easy, but it's possible to convert that. And black will be hanging on to life for a draw if that's what's going to happen. But there is another important move, though, okay? Let's look at another move.
Bishop
After
d5.
rook d8, again, let's make sure we calculate the most, I guess, the move that is most threatening. Again, the most critical variations are the ones that gives you the most important threats.
Maybe rook d8, knight c6.
Yep. B4 idea. I don't know if you meant for white or black, Aradhya. You were saying B4, but yes, B4 is for black. Yeah, that's
B4.
right.
Wow.
So why can't I play B4? So here goes my calculation, right? Rook d8, B4, D5, B3. So now I'm thinking about all of this calculation when I'm playing F5, right? So because I need to make sure that this position is not lost for me, I can push this pawn, right? So again, rook d8, B4. I'm not moving the pieces, so you can try to visualize it as much as possible. Then we'll come to that. And Daniel, I'm going to answer your question in just a second. So anyways, rook d8, b4, d5, b3. So now I'm queening this pawn with check. So you definitely have to stop it. Bishop c3, b2, and bishop takes b2, and rook takes b2. So now I have a situation where there's a rook on d8, pawn on d5, e6, rook on b2, and black is actually up a piece, but white plays d6. So here, I was trying to calculate what is the evaluation for this. My first thought was rook b7, right? Rook b7, the problem is pawn takes, rook takes, and rook d7 is possible. And after rook takes e6, rook takes a7. We have a 3 versus 2, but I do have a cutoff, right? That's one. The second problem I noticed with rook b7 is d7. I don't take your knight, I play d7. Now the idea for me is I want to move my rook and queen. So I started calculating to see if I can actually stop it. Then I found this very nice move, knight c6. Again, there is a reason why I'm not telling you moving the pieces, because I want you to try to visualize this as much as possible, like I did in the game, right? So I find knight c6. I think this is very interesting. If the rook goes somewhere, I can play knight e5 check and knight takes d7, right? Then I realize, what if the rook moves? And when the knight takes on d7, Pawn doesn't take, pawn goes e7, right? And the knight will go to f6. I don't know if you're trying to follow up. Try to follow up as much as possible. Let me repeat it again. Rook d8, b4, d5, b3, bishop c3, b2, bishop takes b2, rook takes b2, e7, rook b7, and d7 now. Sorry, d6, rook b7, d7, knight c6, and now rook f8 is the winning move that I calculated. So I'm going to show this variation now that we have talked about this very quickly. Bishop takes, rook takes, d6, rook here. And I noticed that this move is possible. And when I found this brilliant knight c6, later I found white might play this move. Yeah. So the problem with this move now is I'm going to play e7 next move if you don't do anything to get a queen. And if you play knight check, I don't know if it really matters where I move the king. Aryan, give me 1 second. Let me explain this and then I'll unmute you. So let's say the king goes somewhere, knight takes, and I play e7. So the whole point is now knight f6 doesn't work because of rook takes f6.
Ouch.
So that's why I put the rook on f8.
Brutal.
Yes, Aryan, you have a question?
So go back, please.
Yes.
Go back. No, forward. No,
Forward. Okay, rook b7.
Rook b7, knight c6,
Or rook f8.
rook takes d7 check,
Pawn takes.
knight e5 check.
Okay, so you're finding a way to make a draw by taking this one, yeah?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, this should be a draw, right? Eventually, I will win the a pawn, and 3 versus 2 should be holdable, I think.
Yeah, it's a fortress. Easy.
Yeah. So king here takes, and then rook here, yeah? Yeah, I was really not in a mood to play this position. Actually, I'm not 100% sure what the theoretical endgame here is. Let's see, Andy wants to say something. Andy?
After knight e5
Mhm.
in the other variation.
In the other variation?
Yeah, knight e5.
Okay.
King e2 is the bad move because knight g7, e7, knight f6, and at the end there's rook e7 check.
Ah, okay. I picked the worst possible king move, yeah? Okay, so what Andy is pointing out to is this, look at my king placement turned out to be terrible because of rook e7 check. Okay, let's just pick a better move for the king. Maybe let's go king c2. Huh? Or can I? Oh, yeah, king c2 probably is better. I don't have a rook d7 check. I don't have knight d7 check. So I'll solve both the problems. But yeah, thanks for pointing it out. But anyways, the reason I wanted to show this really long elaborate variation is this is not really so relevant. Daniel pointed out that, so yeah, this variation is actually okay, good for white winning there. So I was trying to calculate what the correct sequence was. And then I realized that after d5, b3, bishop c3, takes, d6, I can, of course, play just king f6. And we will end up in this position. Okay, it should be a draw. I could take on h2, they take on a7, or I can try to push the a pawn, but still should be a draw, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my point was, okay, if my opponent finds all the variation and gets a draw, right? What can I do? I'm in a dangerous position here, but if that's what happens, that's fine, yeah? We also found another draw line by sacrificing the exchange. That is right. So with your rook takes d7, that is true. But if I want to make a draw, Aryan, there is a difference between making a draw where you're up a pawn in a rook and pawn in game or down an exchange, right? You should always make that difference in an actual practical game. So keep that in mind. You don't want to go into a position where you're saying it's a draw, but you have to sit there for like 50 moves defending it, compared to a draw where you're up a pawn and you're the one who's calling the shots, right? Anyway, so watch what happens. I completely missed the fact that white can play rook d7. So this is a simple miscalculation, yeah? So I have spent so much time calculating f5 and I'm calculating all these variations. I just did not see that white even has this move. So my opponent plays rook d7 and the first thing is shock for me. I'm like, what happened? Am I just lost? Is this instantly game over? Did I just miss this move, right? By the way, there's also another move, bishop c1, bishop b2, which I didn't even talk about it. That's what I was calculating. In fact, in my variation, I thought the best move was bishop c1. And after b3, bishop b2. Not even allowing me to do this. And now getting d5 and d6. So I was not so sure how I can respond to this. This looked very strong for white. But I think computer defends with some knight c6 ideas, but let's not worry too much about it. So let's talk about the practical aspect. Yeah. So rook d7 was played, and now I'm in first shock. I've spent so much time calculating some irrelevant moves, and this was really a move that I didn't see. So now the problem was I didn't react properly. So that's what I wanted to show. This is actually still holdable, and black is still doing fine. I take rook takes, pawn takes, and I play knight here. And now king c4 was played. So what should I do now? Let's wrap this up with this last question. I know we went a little over, but we'll wrap it up with this last question. What do you guys think? What should black play? Brian, give me the move first.
Maybe b3, just chase the king away, and then try to bring king to f7. So b3,
King f6, bishop takes b4, and king e6. King e6 you cannot play, yeah? Aradhya, I'll play d5 check. By the way, if you play king f6, I might also play king d5 or king c5. I might not let you play king into e7, yeah? Because if I play king c5 or king d5, you might have to play knight d8, and then I might play like some king d6. I don't know. That's possible.
Yeah.
Ryan is saying a5. Ryan, yes, that's possible.
King b5 or king d5.
So
kind of like
there is
b3.
a5 that's possible. Trying to get the king in directly is possible. There is a move b3 that's also possible. If you take king takes b3, knight check and knight e6, or knight check and knight c6, and then king f7, and try to sacrifice the knight for this pawn or something like that, right? Rachel is saying b3, bishop b3. Don't you keep the bishop tied down? But b3, they'll play king takes b3. Rachel, most likely. If the bishop has to go to c3, then I think black is totally fine. Yeah. King f7, I can always play d5 and put my bishop on b4. Your king will not come in. Your king can be in time only if you have the king already on e7, right? So b3, for example, king takes. If you play this, I can play this, and just simply block you. Yeah, this is completely lost.
Oh my god!
Because you're not getting in. I put my bishop on d6, walk over to take the pawn. Anyway, so the best move is a5.
a5, nice.
There's a little bit of calculation required, but I'm just going to skip through that and show you the answer. The idea is after king b5, I can take check, and after taking the pawn, the good news is I don't have to worry about queen because I have knight c6. So I have b3. This one move buys enough time for black to basically capture the pawn, right? Very important move. And if I have to go king a4, which I think is kind of logical, to try to queen the pawn, knight e6. Again, I cannot take the pawn because of knight c5 check, right? So your timing is kind of important. Now I'm threatening pawn push, so you'll have to play something like that. And then maybe I play here. You can try to block me a little bit, but I simply play knight d8, king e6, and I take the pawn. Nice. This is not impossible calculation, yeah? This is very much possible to calculate it. But the point is I was so shaken up by now, and I was not calculating very precisely. I was panicking big time. I can even remember that. I was like, what did I do? Am I lost, right? How did I not see rook d7? How can I miss such a simple move, right? And then I played a very bad decision. I played b3. After king takes b3, knight d4 check, followed by knight e6. And I thought I can try to hold this, but I did have maybe some chances here and there. But this became very difficult. I tried to trade off some pawns. But basically, he just doesn't take the knight for the pawn yet. He just walks his king all over the place. And the bishop is just too strong. The point is, I hope these examples have given you that, even grandmasters, we make these mistakes, right? Not everything is completely calculated. We are also making all these very regular mistakes. And some of them are just common. Like if you miss something, it's not easy to recover from it, right? If there's a shock that you just didn't see a move and then you're like sitting there wondering, what did I do? It's not easy to recover from it all the time, right? You try to shake it up and then go back to making a good decision, but sometimes it's very tricky. All right, so I guess we can wrap up the lecture part here. So,
yeah,
yes,
Magesh, that was great. Thank you for that. We really.
The kids are asking for Kahoot or Q&A. I don't know.
If you have a Kahoot ready that you think will be fun, we can totally do it.
Yeah, I do have one. I think there's one that this very, very funny one. So maybe we can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's set it up.
So it's one of those Kahoots that's not necessarily, I mean, you're not, I don't know. I tried it with the GM who got 0 out of all the questions. So just giving you a warning, guys.
Fantastic.
It's supposed to be a trick. Okay, so I'll just share screen, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Probably have to mute the audio. Okay, so this Kahoot is basically about, I'll tell you what it is about. It's just a simple checkmate with king versus king and queen, except the best move by chess.com's engine. So you have to guess what the best move is, which might be a made in 10, made in 11, or like something. It's kind of silly, but it's, I think, fun. So let's try it out. So basically it'll be just a king and queen against a king, and you have to find the best move. Okay. So we'll give it a couple of minutes before people join in, and then we have, there's one person who actually has done it. I have done it. If he wins it, don't be surprised. You don't have to give real name. You guys can give whatever names you want. I don't think it's real name. It's just that it doesn't assign any names on its own. I don't think the entire Kahoot is, I mean, like the point I want is that this is not really like calculation. It's more like you have to guess what the chess.com's top engine is. It's impossible to actually, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay. Ryan, you've done it. You're the one, have I done it, right?
Oh, I see. So we're going to be trying to find the best move in a king and queen versus king endgame.
That's right. Yes. So this is, of course, best move according to chess.com's engine.
Like table base.
Something like that, yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, when should we, I see 19 people, 19 participants. Maybe one more minute and we start?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I see some people still joining in. So, all right, guys, one more minute. Aradhya says he has a 7-piece table piece. You cannot do that. You cannot use it. No, not allowed. You have to use your intuition and calculation. I know you're just saying it that you have it. Yeah, that's good. I was just making it clear. I know this is table base. Of course, it's available online. Yeah. Ryan, you're saying I gave it. Yes, I did give it in the future Grandmaster class, Ryan. That's right. Yep. Brian, please don't. You asked for the Kahoot, so don't do anything silly. Thank you. All right, guys. I think we should get started. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let's hit start. Wait, I lost someone. That's okay. All right, so basically you'll have to guess the best move from the chess.com engine.
Okay, let me fix the screen share for you guys.
Okay, let's see how well we do this. Not bad. Some of you have already started to think the other way around, yeah? So queen d1 check apparently is the queen d1 check or king f2 are equally good. 61.1. There's one that's 61.0, which is a little crazy. And of course, we're always taught to play queen c3, I guess, yeah? The reason I thought of this code is because I was teaching one of my students and I was like going over a basic king and pawn endgame. I was telling them this is the right move. And every move I would say, chess.com would say it's a blunder. It'll be like, it's a bad move. So I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe you should do this. All right. What is the best move here? King G2, King H2, Queen D2, or King F1? It's a made in 14, by the way, guys. There are two best moves that has made in 14 and one is made in 15.
There we go, guys. Hopefully we can see the board.
Okay, good. You're getting all the answers right now. King G2.
Sorry, it's hard to follow.
All right.
I think the point micro is just to have fun trying to guess the top engine move. Okay, this one, Queen C7.
Oh, they want the chat to be open. Should I open the chat?
Yeah, we can open it, guys, as long as you behave. Don't spam.
Yep. Don't spam the chat. Okay. Looks like
King
I got
G3.
most of you
Wow.
in this one. King G3 is the right move, which looks kind of difficult. That's apparently a main 12. So most of you went for King F3. Okay, I have done it.
Gotta be Queen F6. No, Queen C5.
Max says you have to follow me on Twitch if I win. Are you winning, Max? You can't give any hints, Ryan. You have to let them do it. Aha. Looks like I'm getting most of you in this one.
King G3.
King to G3 again is the best move.
What?
It's so easy to calculate, guys. Come on, it's a made in 11. Come on, you have to know this.
Brutal.
Okay, the only one person who's gotten this, of course, the person who's done it. Chess.com is biased towards King G3. All right, let's see.
Okay. Oh man, I mean Queen E7 is the move you
There
play.
are top
but
3 moves made in 10.
Is it Queen E7?
Not bad.
King F3.
You guys are understanding what this is here.
Oh my god.
King F3, King E3, and King D3 apparently are made in 10. So I obviously removed King E3 and King F3. I mean King D3.
Wow.
Gave you
Always
the
a
only
king
choice,
move.
which looked ridiculous. Okay. Some of you are guessing this. Okay, 2 more questions.
All right, let's try to find it. King move. Oh, King F3, King G3. Oh no. Probably King F3.
Crystal's like, this doesn't make any sense. Well, this is just a silly, fun kind of Kahoot. Obviously, this is not going to be much in anything. I was hoping to trick most of you in this one. Not
Wow,
bad.
Queen
Some of you
E5.
actually play Queen E5. In this case, of course, Queen E5 does look like the best move. And I was hoping by now you would be conditioned to play the wrong move. Not bad. All right, last question.
Wow. Queen G3, Queen G4, Queen G2. These moves all look like the same.
Chess.com engine will figure out made in 10s for sure. It might be a low depth engine, but not that low. Come on.
Queen F7 check.
All right, yeah, Queen F7 check, of course, is the easiest win because after King H6, you go Queen G8, bring the king towards you, and then checkmate in 7 moves. All right.
Nice.
I know it's a silly kind of a Kahoot, but I haven't.
That's fun.
Greg says he got 2 right. Okay. All right, so I mean, Ryan cannot count in this one because he's already done it. So and he was honest about it. All right, I guess that was fun.
Yeah, that's
Maybe.
good.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that again. No, that was great. Well, okay, guys, I think we will wrap it up here. So thank you guys for joining, and please don't spam the chat. I'm gonna close out the class now. Thank you so much, Gia and Magesh. That was an awesome lesson. We all enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone.
And
Happy
yeah,
Thanksgiving.
we'll catch you guys later.